drinking. It's a club for fighting.
This man was once a fully patched member of the Mongols. He won't reveal his identity for fear it would put his life at risk. He's decided to break the code of silence the Mongols live by, to reveal what life is like on the inside of the notorious gang.
There's clubs that are bigger, but Mongols have never backed down to anybody. And so with that comes arrogance. When starts, Mongols don't fight fair. Somebody's got a knife, somebody's got a gun, somebody's got a hammer.
And now this gang is descending on Boulder City for an annual national get-together. Amid rumors of wild parties, heavy drinking, and brawls, cops are preparing for the worst.
We even have a Department of Homeland Security helicopter in the air tonight. It's, in fact, here it comes over the city right now. Within 15 or 20 minutes, we can double or triple the number of officers in the community if things really go bad.
In terms of motorcycle clubs, the Mongols are the new bikers on the block. They were founded in Southern California at the height of the Vietnam War.
The club was founded in 1969 in a city called Montebello, which is a suburb right outside Los Angeles.
Al Cavazos was a member of the Mongols up until 2008. His brother was the club's national president.
It was founded by quite a few people that came from Vietnam, and they wanted to ride.
Befitting its wartime origins, the club calls itself the Mongols after the terrifying race of 13th century warriors who conquered parts of Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. The club's center patch features a caricature of the Mongol leader, Genghis Khan.
All the groups usually have mottos. The Mongols is respect few, fear none.
Respect few, fear none means if you cross a Mongol, you're gonna get an ass whooping. Mongols aren't scared of anybody.
The Mongols display patches called rockers on the top and bottom of their jackets. The top rocker carries the name of the club, and the bottom rocker, the state they come from. Today, there are around 600 Mongols, with 79 chapters in 14 states across the U.S. California alone has 46 chapters. They reject the rules of the American Motorcyclists Club, the umbrella organization of bikers nationwide. They distance themselves from 99% of law-abiding bikers and call themselves one-percenters.
They take pride in the fact that they are one-percenters, and that means that 1% of motorcycle clubs are considered OMGs or outlaw motorcycle gangs.
But not everyone agrees that the Mongols' reputation for crime is deserved. Former member Al Cavazos thinks they're simply victims of their own success.
I think people have a lot of jealousy for the clubs because they have all the women, they have all the fame. Sometimes that leads to problems, but the Mongols do not go out to create violence. That's a myth.
Yet as the Mongols make their way into town and check into their hotel, tensions are high.
Okay.
One of those who isn't afraid to walk the streets is Stephen Stubbs. As an attorney who works with the Mongols, he sees much to admire in their lifestyle.
They have a love and brotherhood for each other that is inspiring. The way they stand up for each other and the way they come together as brothers is a way that I've never seen in my entire life, even in church. They love each other and they respect each other. They're brothers in every sense of the word.
He believes the police presence at Boulder City this weekend is unwarranted.
I don't know if you call it a peeing match but the police are just trying to show that they're the biggest and toughest people out there.
Sociopathic criminals or a misunderstood brotherhood with a love of the open road. Opinion is divided. But But if there's one thing likely to bring out the worst in a Mongol, it's coming face to face with their most bitter rival.
Because of all the murders and the killings, they don't like us, we don't like them.
They had guns, they had hammers, bats, and that's how the whole thing started.
This is the Mongols Motorcycle Club, a Californian biker gang with affiliated chapters throughout the U.S. and the world. To some, the Mongols are just a harmless group of bike enthusiasts who like to party hard and exercise their God-given right to ride the open.
It goes to some core beliefs. The belief that the government, for instance, should stay out of our lives. The belief that as long as they're not hurting anybody, they should be able to do as they please.
To others, though, the Mongols are a violent criminal enterprise.
The Mongols are a violent organization, very dangerous to the public. Any perceived act of disrespect by a citizen, an act of violence will probably occur. They run by fear and intimidation. That's what it's all about.
Jorge Gilblanco is a retired intelligence officer from the San Jose Police Department. In the 1990s, Gilblanco investigated Californian motorcycle gangs, and today appears in court as an expert witness on the Mongols.
The Mongols always try to provide that public persona that we're just a club, we're just a social organization that likes to ride motorcycles, and we just like to do good for the community. You only see what they want you to see. In other words, they can be very nice individuals on a one-on-one basis, but as a whole, they're involved in criminal activity, and it's important people understand that.
In the past, Mongols have made public displays of charity to children. But according to some, that doesn't change their true nature.
Toys for Tots is just for show. While Toys for Tots is going, there's Mongols in the crowd stealing bikes too.
But former member Al Cavazos contests the club's violent reputation. For Al, the Mongols are just a hard-partying band of brothers, united by a love of the open road.
I got into the Mongols once my brother got in. Then I really liked the Brotherhood, the traveling, the partying. People think when they see you wearing a patch, whether it's Mongols or any other 1% club, they think that you're violent or you're gonna kill him, you're gonna stab him, which is totally not true. Basically, these clubs want to party. And the more people you have, the more associations you have, the better the party. It's a beautiful way of life. It's adventurous, it's interesting. There's never a down moment. When you're a Mongol, your phone will never stop ringing. There'll be somebody, there's a party here, there's a party there, we're going here.
The Mongols Motorcycle Club is a man's world. Women are accepted, but they're forbidden from becoming full members. The highest status they can achieve is to become the property of a male member.
Women love Mongols, they do. They love the mystique, the Harley, the party life. They like everything that goes with a Mongol. That's the Mongol way of life. So if you're a wife, you don't go to a Mongol party and you tell your husband, how come those girls are naked or blah, blah, blah. A Mongol party is a Mongol party. And the Mongols that are married, their wives have learned to accept that.
Women are treated the way you introduce them. If I have a wife, she's my righteous old lady. Hands off it. If you come in and you're not somebody's old lady, you're gonna be treated like.
This man joined the club because of the camaraderie. He found there was a dark side to Mongol party life.
The fun part is when you're stopped and having a party, but when you're on the streets, you got so many enemies because you're a gangster and you got a big sign on your back that says, hey, I'm a Mongol. And basically it says, you know, with me, and people want to take you up on that.
In the 1970s, it was these patches that brought the Mongols to the attention of a deadly foe, the Hells Angels, America's most notorious outlaw motorcycle club.
The feud between the Mongols and the Hells Angels started well over 30 years ago. It started in San Diego County, actually in California. The whole fight was over the bottom rocker. The Mongols, they used to wear a SoCal, which stood for Southern California, bottom rocker on their cuts, on their patch. They decided to go to a California bottom rocker, and the Hells Angels, who considered themselves to be the dominant gang in California.
So the Hells Angels went up to the Mongols and said, "You can't fly California. Only we could fly California." The Hells Angels felt they could control all of California, and the Mongols said, "No, it ain't gonna be like that." And that's how the war started.
The turf war between the Mongols and the Hells Angels has been going on since the 70s.
One of the first incidents was Hells Angels shot and killed a couple of Mongols. Then the Hells Angels placed a red and white wreath at the funeral for those two members, and also set off explosives at that time in the car that was next to the cemetery. Another Hells Angel delivered a tire that had explosives inside the tire at a Mongol-owned shop in Southern California, and which ended up in the death of a 15-year-old boy.
Because of all the murders and the killings, they don't like us, we don't like them. The Mongols just bred into them that they don't like Hells Angels. And I'm sure that Hells Angels think the same thing. They've never seen a Mongol, but they hate them because they're Mongols.
Some say it's a conflict that remains deadly today.
I don't think the feud is over at all between the Mongols and the Hells Angels. They say that they want peace on the surface, but I know that there's a lot of members from both sides that don't want any peace or anything to do with peace.
That's bad news for cops in Boulder City. They're currently dealing with an invasion of around 300 Mongols in their town. And Chief Finn has heard there's a Hells Angels gathering just 25 miles away.
And our biggest fear, of course, is the Hells Angels, which are having a big party in Las Vegas about 20 minutes away.
If they wanted to, the Hells Angels could be here by nightfall.
If that happens, then we'll really have our hands full.
On everybody's mind are the horrific events of April 2002, when this hotel in Laughlin, Nevada, was packed to the rafters with Mongols. And just across town, another hotel was hosting the Hells Angels. What happens next will put the Mongols squarely in the crosshairs of law enforcement.
Just the mere fact that these two groups would do something like that.
We have weapons everywhere.
And you just get to a point in time where you just feel like enough is enough.
Every year since 1983, up to 70,000 bikers from across the U.S. have gathered in Laughlin, Nevada for the Laughlin River Run. The 5-day event is normally a peaceful one, and the 2002 run should prove no different.
We were told we were just going to go out and we were going to hang on the strip down in Laughlin, and we'd be in our patrol officer uniforms.
Sergeant John Sheehan is a member of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. In 2002, he is part of a SWAT team assigned to the Laughlin River Run.
We'd have one van full of some generic SWAT gear that if something did break off, we could grab something and we could go handle the problem.
When John Sheehan and his SWAT colleagues are briefed by local police, alarm bells start to ring.
After our first night there, we were told in a briefing by the lieutenant down in Laughlin that a body had washed up on shore from the Colorado River on the Laughlin side and was discovered overnight, and was apparently a biker-type person. And at that point in time, those of us that had been veterans of many years of police response at the Laughlin River Run thought that something's amiss, that this is not usually what we would see down in Laughlin.
But no one could predict that Laughlin is about to witness one of the most deadly brawls in biker history.
The Mongols and the Hells Angels have been involved in violent confrontations going all the way back to the early 70s.
John Ciccone is a special agent with the ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. In the late 90s, Ciccone and the ATF investigate the Mongols, and later become aware of their ambitions to become the dominant biker gang in California.
From the mid-70s, early 80s on, has basically been turf war problems, where the Mongols try to recruit and expand in Northern California into Hells Angel areas, typical street gang activity. It came to a head in Laughlin. Laughlin was mainly considered a Hells Angel run. They would come in on Saturday night with 300 plus members. They would entertain the crowd. They would come in with their big pack of bikes and do wheelies and do all kinds of things. That was a tradition every year. What the Mongols started to do, they would come to this hotel and they would disrupt this little showing that the Hells Angels would put on. They would kind of walk through the crowd, stand around, and basically, in my opinion, they would be, you know, trying to initiate some confrontation with the Hells Angels.
At first, the Hells Angels tolerate the Mongols' disrespect. But in 2002, the conflict reaches a flashpoint. Around 2 a.m. on Saturday morning, a group of Hells Angels leave their hotel and make their way towards the Mongols' hotel.
We observed approximately a dozen motorcycles come out of the Flamingo Hilton and onto the Laughlin Strip down towards Harrah's. Some of them were wearing their patches, their Hells Angels patches, others weren't, but they all were wearing full-face motorcycle helmets.
Mongol member Al Cavazos is on the gaming floor of Harrah's when the Hells Angels enter.
The Hells Angels walked into the Harrah's Casino, which was the Mongols' casino where we were staying at. So they walked in there looking for problems.
Around 2:15 a.m., the Hells Angels reach the main gaming floor. They get into conversation with the group of Mongols. Then,
one Hells Angels threw a kick at a Mongol, and that's how everything started.
just before 2:17 a.m., the first gunshot rings out.
They started shooting at me, so I was ducking from the bullets. All the slot machines were breaking next to me. I didn't have a weapon, I didn't have a gun or nothing, and they opened fire on me and about 3 other people that were right next to me.
Innocent civilians are in the firing line.
It kind of shows you the determination of these outlaw motorcycle gangs to commit crimes wherever they are, whoever is around, whoever's present.
They opted to get into a shootout in the middle of a casino where there could have been innocent people that could have been injured, killed, and it didn't really matter to them.
Sergeant John Sheehan and his SWAT colleagues rushed to the casino.
Approximately 3 minutes later, the first radio calls come out of shots fired inside of Harrah's. Myself and fellow SWAT operators jumped in the van that we had staged, and we headed down towards Harrah's immediately to address the situation.
What greets Sheehan and his team is total pandemonium.
We were rolling towards the front door of Harrah's. It was chaos. It was a lot of shots being fired, a lot of people screaming. You're seeing dead bodies. You're seeing people that are bleeding.
The call goes out for more police assistance. Hundreds of additional officers from numerous different agencies flood Laughlin.
We have weapons everywhere.
I think there were a total of 107 knives collected that day.
The body count is 2 Hells Angels dead from gunshots, 1 Mongol dead from a stabbing. 12 bikers are hospitalized with gun and knife wounds.
It just got out of hand. That should have never happened, but it happened, and it got out of hand.
Later, the bullet-riddled body of a Hells Angel is found by a roadside west of Laughlin. 78 Hells Angels and 32 Mongols are detained for questioning, but many claim self-defense, and just a handful from each side are convicted.
People that were actually charged for the River Run shootout ended up being fewer than a dozen people.
But the events in Laughlin do little to dent the Mongols' ambitions. In the coming years, they'll redouble their efforts to become the dominant outlaw motorcycle gang in the U.S. Leading the charge is the Mongols' new president, Ruben Doc Cavazos.
I believe his goal was to recruit a lot of gang members to beef up their ranks and basically take over California and then expand east and then into Europe and Canada.
In April 2002, at a casino in Laughlin, Nevada, America witnesses a brutal outbreak of violence between outlaw biker gangs, the Mongols and the Hells Angels. 4 bikers die and a dozen are injured. The latest victims of a long-running turf war.
That was a major incident in the outlaw motorcycle gang world, and we were bracing for potential retaliations between the Mongols and the Hells Angels as a result of that.
Retribution is swift. Within 6 months, a series of biker murders occurs. Many believe they're linked to the feud between the Hells Angels and the Mongols. Law enforcement are concerned that the Mongols' campaign to become a dominant club may lead to all-out war. And that innocent civilians might be in the firing line.
Obviously, the federal government and all law enforcement takes notice of that. And our position is, we're not going to let you conduct yourselves like that. We're going to investigate you, and we're going to prosecute you.
Following the violence at Laughlin, the Mongols elect a new national president. His name is Ruben Cavazos, AKA Doc, because of his job as a technician at a Los Angeles medical center.
I think Doc was charismatic, he was a politician, and I think he was living in his own world of trying to become the gangster of the century. But I think he got in over his head.
Doc Cavazos joins the Mongols in the early 1990s, when the gang is a minor player on the LA biker scene. Doc's brother Al is a member of the Mongols at the same time.
When he joined the club, there was only 27 active members. Only 27.
Doc got a lot of people in the club, got the membership up to 500.
Some believe Doc has one overriding ambition for the Mongols, to be bigger than the Hells Angels. He puts his plan into action by forming alliances with other biker gangs.
He reached out to the pagans, he reached out to the bandidos, he reached out to the outlaws, and he made a friendship with all of them.
We see some of the major outlaw motorcycle gangs affiliating and forming alliances against their common enemy, which would be the Hells Angels.
Doc then decides to boost Mongol numbers by recruiting members of Hispanic street gangs. He recruits around 300 new members, but in doing so, he makes a dangerous new enemy.
The Mexican Mafia basically runs all the southern street gangs in California. What was happening was these former street gang members were still selling drugs and taxing people, but not paying anything back to the Mexican Mafia, which they were required to do. And that word finally made its way to the Mexican Mafia, and they had a problem with that. And then we started to see the violence.
There was brothers killed by gangsters, neighborhood gangs.
The recruiting of street gang members also makes Doc enemies within the Mongols.
He made some changes that definitely were not liked by a lot of the members, the old-time members. One of the major things that I know of was basically recruiting Hispanic street gang members that didn't own a motorcycle, had never ridden a motorcycle.
He took us from being a motorcycle club to being just a street gang with a bunch of bald-headed dudes that with khakis on and don't like to ride. Whenever Doc rolled out, he would be surrounded by gangsters from neighborhoods that aren't afraid to shoot, aren't afraid to stab, which made him look bigger too.
I think he had this vision or this illusion that he was untouchable and he was the king of all criminals.
The ATF, the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, is becoming concerned about Mongol activities. They've scored some notable successes against the gang in the late 1990s. But now, they decide it's time to act again.
There's really three components to why we ended up initiating a second investigation: the conflicts with the Hells Angels, conflicts with the Mexican Mafia, and the internal conflicts within the gang itself.
To take action, the ATF needs to find out exactly what criminal activity the Mongols are involved in. But the Mongols' code of silence makes it difficult to gather evidence. To beat the Mongols, they have to get inside the gang. That's where this man comes in.
Doing any undercover work is dangerous. In this particular case, you're doing an infiltration into a violent motorcycle gang. The element is extremely dangerous.
In 2005, 4 ATF agents attempt to infiltrate the Mongols in an operation called Black Rain. The work of these agents will open a window into a little-known world and bring the Mongols Motorcycle Club to its knees. In the early 2000s, law enforcement believed the Mongols Motorcycle Club are involved in gun running and drug trafficking, but they need proof. So in 2005, the ATF launches Operation Black Rain. 4 undercover agents, 1 in Nevada and 3 in California, spend 3 years infiltrating the gang.
So basically, this whole gated area right here with the steel gate, that's where the Mongols would typically hold their members-only meetings, in the back of that location.
This is one of the ATF agents who takes part in Operation Black Rain. His identity cannot be revealed.
Quite often during our investigation, we would be at this location where hundreds of Mongols would attend. Criminal activity was discussed, issues with rival gangs were discussed. Mongol membership would ask us if we had our weapons, and he basically told us to make sure we had them on our person to protect the Mongol event from any potential rival attacks.
Infiltrating the Mongols is a long and dangerous process. First, the agents are provided with credible backstories by the ATF, a technique called backstopping.
Backstopping is creating an undercover identity for the undercover agents. These organizations will typically hire private investigators to check their background. And so we have to have fictitious identities set up to be able to withstand that type of testing as they're progressing through the membership process.
Usually, an informant inside the gang makes the initial introductions. The agents then embark on the first stage of the membership process. They become hang-arounds.
With us in the hang-around phase, targeting members of the Mongols and buying narcotics from them, hand-to-hand buys, so to speak. What's happening at that point is members are starting to trust us, but at the same time, some red flags go up on their knowledge of maybe something's wrong here with the amount of dope we are buying. And it was a glitch we had to get over, a little bump in the road, but we ended up getting over it. And slowly but surely, over time, we became involved with numerous members of the Mongols.
This former Mongol believes the purpose of the hang-around phase is to lure new recruits by giving them a taste of the benefits of Mongol life.
When you're hang around, you're treated with respect. You have all the women you want. When they have the really good parties with the women, with the sex and the hookers and everything, those are all free. Those are all yours. You're treated with respect, again, because they want you to come in.
After the hang-around phase, the next is prospecting.
The initiation into the club is called prospecting. That's how you become a Mongol. You have to prospect.
You come in as a prospect, everything changes. You're treated like, if we're gonna go to a bar, you're gonna stand outside and watch the bikes. If I say, prospect, go get me tacos from Tijuana and I want them hot, when they come back, they have to be hot. If there's a fight that breaks out, prospects have to be the first ones in it. We were told when we were prospecting that you were going to be expected as a member of the Mongols to defend that patch with violence.
The prospect phase lasts a minimum of 6 months. Prospects are allowed to display the bottom rocker, showing the location of their chapter. As they move up in status, they are given a Mongol's logo patch. To get the top rocker and become a fully patched member, prospects must be unanimously voted in by other members.
I could bring it up on the vote saying, Joe Schmuckatelli, he's been prospecting for a year. He's been prospecting for 6 months. He's done everything everybody's asked. I make a motion that we bring him into the club as a full patch. Every vote has to be 100%. The happiest feeling is when I left, I had my patch on. I didn't know where I was going. I started driving just so I could show everybody, hey, I got a full patch.
In their undercover roles, the ATF agents become intimate with the gang's codes of conduct.
The Mongols, during our time of infiltration, had the mentality that we do not need, as Mongols, to ask permission from anyone to exist anywhere. And if you disagreed with them, they would respond with force.
But for some members of the Mongols, undercover infiltration is of little concern.
So I always thought if there was a cop in the club, I am not doing nothing wrong. I'm not selling drugs, I'm not carrying a gun, I'm not killing nobody. All I'm doing is partying. What are you gonna get us for? Partying? Too many women? I mean, being drunk?
But within a year of Black Rain's inception, the ATF is recording alarming incidences of violence by the Mongols.
Bunch of stabbings at bars and nightclubs. A Mongol member, his girlfriend, she was dating a black guy. He didn't like that and stabbed her. 2007 at a bar up in Lancaster. 2 Mongols were up there, saw someone and felt disrespected, and they killed him.
The Mongol Code of Honor demands that whenever a Mongol is harmed, there will be payback.
If a brother gets killed, there's retribution. It'll be very quiet. There'll be a team will be put out. I've been on a team looking for somebody. Recon where he lives at, where he works at, look for him, cruise around. But there's, for lack of a better word, there's a hit squad going looking for that person.
This dog-eat-dog world places the lives of the undercover agents in constant peril. As supposed Mongols, they're exposed to danger from all sides.
Being a member of the Mongols was a dangerous thing to be, because you now have your common rivals with the Hells Angels that have been an ongoing rivalry since the 70s. You now have targets and enemies made within local area street gangs, as well as you're a target of law enforcement.
By 2008, the undercover agents are all fully patched members of the Mongols. They're using wiretaps to record activities, and evidence piles up.
They were involved in anything from narcotics trafficking to weapons violations to significant acts of violence.
Much of the violence is directed against the Mongols' bitter rivals, the Hells Angels.
We're going to be coming up to a gas station, which is just off the 210 freeway in Pasadena. At one point during our investigation, there was 2 Hells Angels who had stopped for gas on their motorcycles. The 2 Mongols were driving by, and they immediately attacked these Hells Angels members. They suffered multiple stab wounds.
Taking refuge inside the gas station, the stabbed Hells Angel bleeds on the floor. His partner presses clothing onto the wound to stem the flow.
The Mongols gained a certain status because they took action against members of the Hells Angels. And they were awarded a patch called Respect Few, Fear None.
The agent's evidence is crucial in identifying both the perpetrators of crimes and those who order or condone them. Vital in a case prosecuted under RICO, or the racketeer-influenced and corrupt organization laws.
It's basically a federal law that allows us to utilize against bigger criminal organizations. It allowed us to target the top level national hierarchy of the Mongols.
Which means the Mongols' leader, Ruben Doc Cavazos.
He was the national president, and he controlled the organization. So whatever crimes were committed by that organization, you know, it was under his watch and his control.
By October 2008, the ATF are ready to pounce on Cavazos and the Mongols. In 2008, the ATF is near the end of a 3-year undercover operation focusing on the Mongols Motorcycle Club. They're discovering they're not just a band of bike enthusiasts. They are a brotherhood with links to criminal activity.
Criminal activities that we've witnessed will range from narcotics use to narcotics distribution to possession of firearms by prohibited persons to actual acts of violence, intimidation, you name it, you know, we've seen it.
If somebody called us organized crime, that's 100% true.
Anti-Gang Bureau, the ATF, is aiming to deal a blow to the gang's entire structure and to the ambitions of its national president, Ruben Doc Cavazos.
He's handing out awards for people who are stabbing people and shooting people. He's the national president of a criminal organization that he's allowing to commit all those criminal acts.
October 21st, 2008. More than 1,000 law enforcement officers across 6 different states are preparing simultaneous raids on Mongol hangouts.
We were at the point where the evidence that we had gathered had pretty much been taken to where we needed to take it to.
ATF Special Agent John Ciccone, who devises and manages Black Rain, feels the time is right to wind up the operation.
At the end, you're looking at, is this case manageable from a prosecution standpoint? Have we accomplished our goals? Have we done enough when it's all said and done where we can walk away and say we made a difference and made the community safer?
Agent Ciccone is about to find out.
Wait for the first warrant. Come on with your hands up.
On October 21st, officers make over 100 arrests of Mongols and their associates. Al Cavazos is one of them.
I was charged with drugs, with distribution of drugs. I was charged that I went to a party that the pagans had in New Jersey, and they said at that party that I was working drug deals out, which is false charges. That never happened.
Al is convicted and spends 8 months in prison. He has since completed his sentence, but still contests the charges.
I never sold drugs, but I pleaded to drugs. The reason I pleaded to drugs was because if I plead to drugs, I did 8 months. If I fight it, I would have got 20 years.
Over 70 Mongols are arrested and convicted. 30 members of associated street gangs are also brought to justice. National President Ruben Doc Cavazos is convicted of racketeering and drug trafficking. He is sentenced to 14 years in prison.
The biggest success for me is I felt that we were able to hit and convict individuals that held high-ranking positions within the whole organization itself. We were able to not only arrest and convict the actual members that are doing the drug dealing and the murders and the assaults and the firearms trafficking, but the higher-ups or the national officers that are condoning it or controlling it.
For the ATF's undercover agents, the arrests and convictions conclude 3 productive but dangerous years.
Myself and the other agents that were taking part in this operation, we're very proud of what we accomplished, but also at the same time, we consider ourselves very fortunate that we're able to get through this operation in one piece.
4 years on from Black Rain, the national gathering of Mongols at Boulder City has cops preparing for the worst. But the weekend passes without serious incident. Does this mean the Mongols are no longer following a life of crime?
Do I believe they've changed? No, I don't believe they've changed. A little more low-key at this point, and then they'll be back to doing the same stuff.
And as recently as August 2011, the Mongols are brawling again. At a biker run in Sturgis, South Dakota, a Hells Angels hangout is approached by Mongols. Punches are thrown, and knives come out. 2 bikers are stabbed, the latest victims of an almost 40-year feud.
The feud between the Mongols and the Hells Angels is not over, and to my knowledge, it will never be over.
You have too much water under the bridge. There's been too much killing back and forth, and a lot of guys can't forget.
It's just a vicious cycle. So, you know, you can only do what you can do as a law enforcement agency to try to let them know we're gonna keep the pressure on and we're gonna keep convicting members and keep putting guys in prison.